Your favorite Baylor player of all time, the greatest Baylor player of all time, and the one that made you cringe the most disliked. That all on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome into Locked On Baylor. Drake Toll alongside today's guest host, Evan Hebert, at Evan Hebert on Twitter. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day. Welcome to YouTube, too. The podcast is on YouTube. And Evan, I'm not sure what superlative to give you. Evan Hebert of Baylor Twitter, I think, is like all-encompassing for you. Or, you plug the podcast. Take it away. Evan, welcome.
Oh, hello. I'm glad to be here. They always say if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you become an expert. And I got about 6,000 hours left on this Twitter thing. So give me about another decade and I might start putting some good stuff out,
I don't know how to word this. Every story has a villain. And sometimes in the best way possible, you are that villain.
You have to be. Someone needs to do it. And I think there's a lot of well-meaning people on Baylor's Twitter. And there's also people who want to be villainous. And they're too good of people to really do it, They'll be like, they'll respond and say something like, wrong, actually, and send like a bear gif. And that's helpful to the cause. But I just feel like we need more. And I've signed up for that. So.
Well, Evan, thank you for taking that in stride. And that kind of segues a bit, and I'll explain how it segues into today's conversation to start the show so there's a tweet out there that I saw that some baseball account tweeted about your favorite major league player of all time, a player you dislike, and yada, yada. So I turned that list to made it Baylor centric. And a lot of folks had some super interesting responses for their favorite Baylor player, the player they dislike, player that grew on them, overrated, underrated, the GOAT. And these are amazing answers. So I want to kind of pitch that to you and incorporate that in our conversation today. And the reason it's a segue, we talk about villain. I have never said this in public, but when I think about players that I dislike, it's a strong word.
Yeah.
Evan, Baylor fans don't like the word dislike.
No.
Like I'm surprised anyone responded to dislike because you don't see that very often.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what I said, people will, they'll stick their neck out there and be like, I don't really dislike anyone. Or they'll mention someone who like transferred or someone who maybe had issues.
Jarrett Stidham, low-hanging fruit.
Not related to, their performance, which is, it's fine, but it's safe. And we're not going to be safe here. We're going to say it with our chest. So I don't know if I ever saw your responses to these. So I don't know if you want to go first or we want to do a little back and forth situation.
Dude,
I'd love to hear yours.
I'll take this one. And I struggle with this. I said kind of as a joke, right? There are like the ones that just make sense. Like the fumble against UNLV was Darrell Bush. So I said Darrell Bush, kind of, that's funny. Someone said, someone said Dotson, which is terribly low-hanging fruit and awful. Like, that's, yes, no brainer. But someone who I have been 50-50 with for a while now is Mark Vital. Oddly enough, he's a poster child for a lot of Baylor Nation. But if I had to answer the question with someone relevant, modern, it might be Mark Vital. And I think because he scares me a little bit. He's got the villain thing and the Joker. And my only thing is, I think he gave himself that nickname. And
he did.
I don't think you can give yourself your own nickname if it's the villain.
Did it for you.
That was when I was like, wait a second.
Okay.
So I might, if I had to go relevant player back against the wall, couldn't go, with Bush, I may end up going Vital. Sorry, everyone. What say you, Evan?
Okay. This is one that I did think about all day and I did come up with an answer with. The other ones might be a little more spontaneous, but this one I'm confident in. I've said it for years. I want you to imagine a player for basketball who plays very similar to Matthew Meyer, right? So you get the good, the bad, the sometimes a little bit wild, but can get a bucket. Now imagine that if he only scored 4 points, 5 points a game. I'm sure he's a great guy off the court. I'm sure he has a great, wonderful family. I hope he doesn't hear this. But my least favorite player of all time for Baylor is A.J. Walton. He played basketball here from, I believe, 09 to 13. And if you recall that specific era of Baylor basketball, we were really good and really unlucky. We got bounced out of the tournament in a couple unfortunate calls. We didn't break through. And I feel like it's not his fault, but I feel like when I think about that era, I picture him taking maybe an extra couple of dribbles he didn't need to, or trying to make a pass after jumping ill-advised. So AJ, if you hear this, I'm sorry, but you were my least favorite Baylor athlete.
See, look at this too. There are public universities, people are like, oh, disliked, easy, so-and-so from 06. But at Baylor, it's like, okay, with all due respect and in the name of the Lord, you are a great person and I love you, but it might be, and I think most people, bounced around that. A few folks said Akinjo, which is, again, I think low-hanging fruit after a couple games this season. He was also third-team All-American, which is all of America. And elsewhere, and I think another one that was interesting, player that grew on me, for me, it was Freddie Gillespie. He was a guy that when he came in early on, he tried hard, but I was like, oh, here comes Freddie. This is... Especially when you had what's his face, who was 6'10", went to SMU, and once they leave Baylor, drop off the radar. Who for you? Who grew on you, Evan?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like Queen Egbo grew on me a lot the last few years because she came in on a team. She was on the roster when we won the national championship,
right?
And her freshman year didn't get a lot of minutes, and we've had this a few times during the Kim Mulkey era, but she seemed like someone who was very good, but played a position where we had the best players in the country in. So we were never going to get to see her play. She was going to transfer out and have a good career somewhere else. Some things shifted around. She ended up getting a lot of minutes, and I believe she was drafted into the WNBA just tonight.
Yeah. So I said NaLyssa Smith originally. Okay. That was something I bounced around because kind of the same thing. She was really good when she was young, but it was the idea that she was on a star-studded team. So how does she kind of fit into the future of Baylor? She grew on me a lot because, she filled into that star role. When she first started, I wasn't thinking number 2 overall WNBA draft pick, which she now we'll get into was. And so, I think NaLyssa Smith would maybe be mine alongside Gillespie. I like the Queen Egbo one. We're already pressed for time in segment 1, so I want to end with, okay, I love all these. Most underrated player, quick hitter, go.
Most underrated player. The most underrated player in Baylor athletics history is Odyssey Sims, and I'll tell you why. Okay. She came in at the tail end of the Brittany Griner era when we were beating the hell out of everyone.
You can say hell on this podcast. Nicely done.
Good. Oh, good. We were beating the hell out of everyone. And she put up like first-team All-American numbers for 3 years, and we just didn't really get to appreciate it much because Brittany was dunking on folks. So she got drafted. She's a great player. She's widely considered to be great, and I still don't think we talk about her as if she's actually as great as she was.
Underrated player for me. Mine is so weird. I said Motley. Okay. I went Motley, and the reason why is, when's the last time you heard his name? I feel like
in a while.
I don't ever hear about Motley because Baylor didn't have Elite 8 success when he was soaring to the heights that he went. You have the was 16, the Yale loss. I think he tried to go to the NBA in 17. The guy was a stud. Yeah. You just don't hear his name thrown out very often. It's like we forgot about him when he left. And I think we shouldn't forget about him. He was really nice and cool. And last one, because this one's, I don't know, you could probably debate this. I don't think you can. I think it's clear cut. The GOAT, the greatest Baylor athlete of all time.
Okay. I think that the greatest Baylor athlete of all time is one Seth Russell. He never showed us that he was anything except the best player on the field and fragile. Not even fragile. Susceptible to freak accidents. He never did a single thing on that football field that wasn't Heisman level caliber, like football playing. If it's not for 2 freak accidents, he's probably got a statue on campus right now. He might have 2. I know the easy choice is Robert Griffin, and I think it's a fine choice. I don't disagree with it, but I think the difference between those 2 players is one had their career-ending injury about 4 years too soon.
Mine, far and away, Brittany Griner. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. What an absolute freaking stud
Mhm.
in basketball. I'm giving it to Brittany Griner. She was, I think it was like a 4-time All-American and
Yep.
2-time Player of the Year. Brittany Griner for sure needs a statue at Baylor. But
Yep.
Evan, we have overexhausted our very first segment, which means that I must take this time to very happily let the folks at home know about betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. This year's basketball playoffs, NBA, MLB. If you need to put a little bit of your, legally put some financial funds onto sports, betonline.net is your place to go. All kinds of wagering information, live betting, and this Vegas-style casino. BetOnline is your spot. Head to the website today to use your mobile device. Learn more about trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. BetOnline.net. All right.
There you go.
Evan. The number 2 overall WNBA draft pick, NaLyssa Smith, which I don't want to say that too begrudgingly because it's a great accomplishment, but I had it in my brain set on her going number 1, and she didn't. Number 2 is obviously no slouch. It's the freaking in WNBA draft. What do you make, broad question, of NaLyssa Smith going to the Indiana Fever?
I'm very excited about it. I have for a few years there, I was having to not go out of my way, but make a conscious decision to watch the WNBA because in my head, I was like, I do like this sport. I am interested in it. It just wasn't in my normal routine. And as the last few years have progressed, we've gotten some more names that I recognize in the league from Baylor and just other, women's basketball programs. So this is just another data point as to why I'm going to continue watching the hell out of some WNBA sports. I also have some more NaLyssa Smith thoughts. I feel like up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when a player for women's basketball was a preseason, definitely going to be number 1. It's a person that just dominated, just was bigger or was stronger or was faster, just outperformed everyone from their God-given abilities, right? Brittany was bigger than everyone. She can do all these things. And I feel like NaLyssa isn't the first player like this, but she's definitely the first couple that I can think of where she's just a hooper, right? She's not going to be the tallest girl on the court. She maybe not is going to sprint down the fastest, but she's going to give you a bucket whenever you want. And she has a deep, deep bag. So that's been really cool because I feel like we've had a lot of really, really good players come through Baylor, but I don't want to say is the most complete player, but she is top 3 most complete player to ever come out of Baylor.
Her ability to create shots from the mid-range is beyond impressive. Probably the best that I've seen from a Baylor player of that stature because she's a forward. She's a true forward. She's got a large court presence, right? She's so long, and I think that's going to carry her far in the WNBA. And the fact that she can hit a 16-footer from the short corner is something that, dude, hey, I can ball out at the rec league. You catch me at the slick on the wrong day, you're getting not dunked on, but layupped on. And put me in the short corner from 16 feet without a backboard, I'm not touching anything. It's one of the toughest shots in basketball, and it's what she does. I think that in itself is so unique. It sets her apart from the rest of this draft class and maybe the rest of the WNBA because she's a plug-and-play, possible, all WNBA player early in her career.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good times, man. It's been very fun to grow up in the Waco area and have women's basketball have such a platform by itself for so long, and now it's sharing it while still outperforming the other sports on average. But it's been cool, man. We have had some really, really talented players come through Baylor, and watching them play when I was much younger, I just thought that was a normal thing communities had, was a basketball team that never lost. So I feel like I've grown into someone who is appreciating how hard it is to be as good as we have been for so long and to continue to convince high school athletes to come here and keep kicking butt.
And that too, you could make the case, and I've had this conversation a million times before about what is kind of the marquee sport at Baylor, what is, Baylor synonymous with in athletics. The first team to win a major national championship was tennis in 2005, men's tennis in 2005, and women's basketball was right there in the same time period, winning their national championship too over Michigan State. And that in itself is what most people associate Baylor with. When you think what sport is Baylor dynastic in? If it's a major sport, it's women's basketball, right? Obviously, track has been a fantastic, tennis too, but most folks are going to go straight to women's basketball, especially pre-RG3. That, Kim Mulkey, maybe you say that without delight, but Kim Mulkey put Baylor athletics on the map, and the women's basketball prowess has played through that. And I think NaLyssa Smith is another one of those names that's top 5 in.
I can't name 6 better than her. I know that much.
Yeah, in Baylor women's basketball history. And that's a list of 5 people that is insane if you were to compile it. So heard of the Indiana Fever, which I'm trying to think. That was Indiana Fever. Was that Lauren Cox? Did she also get drafted by the Fever, or am I off on that?
I'm going to be wrong, but I think you're right. I think
I'm
you're
testing you on your WNBA knowledge.
I know. You put me on the spot there. I do think it was the Fever, and I think she got traded to, I think it may have been a team in Atlanta.
It was the Fever.
There you
number
go.
3 overall pick, and then they waived her.
Yeah.
They waived the number 3 overall pick.
After 1 or 2 years, yeah.
Suckers.
But yeah, man, it is very cool to one, have a basketball team women's basketball team that we give the appropriate attention to, that deserves it. And 2, that we have such a storied and deep history of this team where we have takes, we have a decade's worth of conversation to be had. Speaking of a decade's worth of women's basketball conversation, I need to tell you the biggest crush I've ever had on an athlete at Baylor.
Please.
I was in high school. I went to a Catholic church growing up. So Baylor has like a Catholic church on campus. So we went to there for like something. It was like Ash Wednesday or something.
Nice.
And our youth pastor was like, hey guys, they're having like a worship thing at this like religious center on campus. So we went, and everyone in there had their ashes on. Some people were too cool and like wiped it off. But former women's basketball player, Allison Jones, walks in, and she had her ashes on, and I was in love with her. And I can't confirm whether or not I still am, but I've never had a chance to share that with anyone publicly. So I just thought I'd give you that little piece of my heart there.
Breaking news on Locked On Baylor at Evan Hebert's Locked On Baylor debut. Allison Jones, shout out. I'm sure she's listening too.
I'm sure she is.
I also have a women's basketball story, because why not? I would say, I think tutor is a good word. I was Jay Nolan's math tutor. We had ideas in mathematics together. Not even a real math class, just ideas. And like, if we were going to have ideas in mathematics, this is what they would be. Yep. And so mind you, she's got like 350,000 followers or something stupid on Instagram. Like, it's nuts. And so I was in my car one day, and I get like a DM from a verified account with 350,000 followers, and it's freaking Jade Nolan. She's like, hey, how'd you do on the homework? And I was like, this is it. This is my big break. This is huge. Which she dated Lonzo Ball. So she, blew up. Or what was it, Lonzo? LiAngelo. She dated LiAngelo. The one that everybody forgets. And so I was starstruck. That is my women's basketball story. So now that we've shared both of those, NaLyssa Smith has gone number 2 in the WNBA draft. And somehow that's all full circle.
Look at life.
Wow.
Last thing about women's basketball. My freshman year at Baylor was Brittany Griner's senior year.
Yeah.
She sat one seat in front of me in American history, like 1776 through the Civil War, because they break it up into 2 at Baylor.
Yeah, they do.
The first half of there, she sat right in front of me. And we all know that she's tall. We know that she's big. We know that she's this larger than life presence. What you don't realize is her head and hair combo took up my whole field of view. Like I had never been that close to someone that big and athletic before. Starstruck the whole semester. She shared her big blue with me on several occasions. So, Brittany, if you're listening, thanks for the big blue.
Boom. I don't think she's listening.
Brittany, when you hear this, thanks for the big blue.
Yeah, and welcome home too.
And welcome home.
Yeah, that I'm not sure if Locked On Baylor, if they get that overseas. But that's a conversation needs to be had for a different time, obviously. Yeah. But bring Brittany home. Free Brittany. Evan, thanks for joining today, dude. What a freaking blast, man. Let's do this again before we die.
Yeah, I'm around. You know where to find me. I'll click this Zoom link next time. I'll just from time to time. See how you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Evan, thanks again for coming on today. A pleasure. And I'm gonna boom. tell you folks about, are you ready for this? I'm going to tell you about Locked On's NFL draft coverage and the NFL mock draft special. So thanks for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day. I want to let you know a big announcement starting Thursday, April 28. Tune into Locked On NFL Draft's live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft. All 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Audacity and Locked On NFL mock draft special hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show all week leading up to the first pick. Locked On NFL Draft live at Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube, Odyssey NFL Mock Draft, Odyssey and Locked On NFL Draft podcast feeds. That is Locked On NFL Draft and Odyssey NFL Mock Draft. April 28th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, April 29th, 6:30 Eastern Time, April 30th at 11:30 a.m., and then Odyssey on April 18th. The April 18th, the 22nd, and the 25th. So check those out for your NFL draft coverage. All right, we welcome onto the show now Max Garner, former Baylor baseball player, first team All Big 12 pitcher. Max, Baylor baseball right now in a bit of a rut at 16-15 overall. Losers of 4 straight after getting swept at West Virginia this past weekend. Before we get into that, I want to thank everybody at home for making Locked On Baylor their first listen every day. Find us wherever you get your podcasts and now on YouTube. But Max, 3 games and a sweep against West Virginia this past weekend. Really kind of the opposite of what the doctor ordered if you're looking toward the postseason.
Yeah, this was kind of, it's too early for it to be a totally make or break weekend, but that really hurt, especially with it being a sweep. We jumped out to leads in all the games, deep into the game, held the lead deep into the game for a couple of them. And, just again, what we've seen over and over again this year is giving up 2 or 3 run leads, in the middle or late innings of games.
Is this a case of not having a Max Garner or Troy Montemayor or, Luke Boyd or somebody to come in and close out these games from the bullpen? Because looking at it so far, you've got 3 starting pitchers who are giving you pretty solid stuff. But past that, it seems like maybe it's the youth of this team that's just chipping away at late game leads.
Yeah, and the bullpen was the question mark to start the season, right? I mean, we knew the offense was going to be good. We knew Tyler was going to be good. We didn't know it was going to be quite like it's been, but we knew he was going to be good. And we knew that there was a few options for starting pitching, We didn't know it'd be Kobe. We didn't necessarily know it would be Will Rigney, but we knew there were some options there. And I don't know, that it hurts not having a closer for sure, but I don't even know how we would get to the 8th inning. And I don't remember, enough of mine. I don't think I ever threw more than 2 innings, except maybe once or twice once I was into the closer position, and that was over 2 years. So I don't know what the answer is. The answer is, 4 or 5 guys are going to have to take a deep breath and turn their season around.
And that, as someone who has the playing experience at Baylor and at an elite level, how is there a way to look at the full scope of your season to this point and then say, flip a switch somehow and become that elite bullpen setup guy or even a closer? Or is pretty much all hope lost if you're 31 games in and it still hasn't clicked for the bullpen?
I'm concerned. I mean, it would be one thing if it really was just, one person with 2 or 3 blown saves in big situations, but we're looking at bullpen, some of the guys coming out of the bullpen with multiple losses on their record, and it's the same problem for 5 or 6 guys. They're getting behind people, which, either leads you to 2-0, 2-1 count where you're throwing a fastball and they know you're throwing a fastball, and that's not usually that good of a situation. And they'll either hit it or a lot of the times these guys aren't challenging them with a fastball over the plate to even make the hitter swing, and the walk numbers are through the roof. And we got a lot of people throwing a lot of pitches, even when they're getting out of innings clean.
On the other side of this too, I'm kind of going to throw this on you without any preparation, but to you that you can think back, since Coach Rod got here, would it be remiss to say this is maybe the best offense that he's had since he got to Baylor? Would that statement be true?
Yeah, I mean, at least as far as what everyone was expecting going into the season. With Lofton a couple of years ago and Shea, that might have been a little bit more powerful. But as far as expectations, I mean, me and I think a lot of other people who pay attention to college baseball expected us to score a lot of runs this year, and it did not happen until about 2.5 weeks ago. And, Makenzie's woken up. He's kind of balanced out his numbers to be what we thought he was going to do. Good. I think I tweeted it earlier today. Good players balance it out, after they have a bad start. Trey Richardson's been great all year. Pineda and Cardozo-Oquendo have been really good. Wessner's been pretty good, but it took a while as a group for them to really start scoring runs, and that hurt, and I think it hurt some of the pitchers' confidence that they were losing some of the games where the staff only gave up 5 runs, but, the offense that was expected to score so much just wasn't for a while.
And I know that, Coach Rod is somebody who we've had on the show and someone who I favor. I mean, I think the world of the guy. Coach Strauss, too. I think both those guys are awesome, and I know you feel the exact same way. What do they now need to do from that leadership position to turn the ship around when you still have teams like Texas and Oklahoma State that are on the gauntlet that is your Big 12 schedule?
Yeah, and Tech coming to Waco, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my time, we had people that had issues, myself included, for a middle part of the season where you kind of hit a slump like a hitter does or something like that. But yeah. I don't remember a time where it was, all 5 of the names that you hear consistently out of the pen that get turned to, you really don't have any one of them that is super trustable. And you got to keep pumping them with confidence. That's the only thing you really can do in practice. But it's really hard to think about what you could really work on. If it's a mechanical problem, that's hard to fix in the middle of the season. And if it's in your head at this point in the year, we're deep in it. We're deep in the season. It's going to be pretty well rooted. It's a really tough problem. And as much as he's struggled, I'd say the one that could turn the switch at any time is Mason Marriott because of his stuff and the fact that he's young and he might just forget that he's been struggling at some point and start throwing strikes. But, it's more of the other guys that have kind of been more disappointing because you needed a couple of the sophomores and juniors and 4th-year juniors and stuff to really step up. And we just haven't seen that.
Yeah. Well, Max, before we get you out of here, I know that down the stretch of the season, you still have Oklahoma State, Texas. You have the series against Texas Tech, Kansas. I know you've got Kansas State still in there. How many of the last 5 series does Baylor have to win to even have a shot to go to the postseason?
I mean, at least 3, and I'd say you need 5 of 6 games against the Kansas schools. I mean, I'd say you maybe could lose 1 to K-State just because it's on the road, but this weekend we need to sweep Kansas at home. That's just got to happen. And it would be really nice to say you win 2 out of 3 against those teams. Texas Tech and Oklahoma State are all in the top 10. It's going to be a problem, and it would be nice to win 2 out of 3, and then maybe you have a chance. But we can't we can't be swept anymore, even if it's Texas or Tech or somebody that's ranked up there really high.
Well, Max, flipping the switch away from baseball for our last little go around. I'm going to hit you with, I'm going to give you some quick hitters here and a little call and response. Your favorite Baylor player of all time, all sport?
Robert Griffin, my age. We were freshmen together. I got to say that.
RG3 locked in. The player, this is Baylor Twitter is so nice. It's too nice to ask them who they dislike the most, to the point where folks are just either not answering it or being like, reluctantly it is. For you, the player that you watch and you kind of cringe sometimes when you watch them.
Meyer.
Well played.
I didn't answer that on Twitter earlier, but he drives me nuts.
Low-hanging fruit. That's well done. Low-hanging fruit. I would have said player I disliked, Meyer. Also player that grew on me, Meyer.
Right.
Most overrated player. He fills a few of those slots.
Yeah.
Which player did you dislike at first that grew on you?
I think I put Odyssey Sims on Twitter, but there was a few of them. She was just kind of during my time, so I went to a lot of the women's games, and she got so much. Like by the time she was a senior, she was dominant.
Absolute force. Playing with Brittany Griner too. That's the second time she's come up on today's podcast. And the most overrated Baylor player,
Elliot Coffey.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be sent to him too. That's going to be sent to him. Absolutely. Most underrated Baylor player.
I think Josh Ludy. I just think everyone talks about Muncie from our team, and Ludy was the Big 12 Player of the Year.
Oh, that's true. That's true. On the Muncie team, which it's Muncie's, pro success that obviously has skyrocketed him to the, legend status.
Hitting behind Muncie got Josh Ludy a lot of fastballs, but he took advantage of it.
Yeah. And then last but not least, the greatest Baylor player of all time.
It's got to be Griffin or Singletary, or one of the track guys, but I'd still put it with RG3. He's my favorite.
Not Jennings. You're not going Jennings.
No, not Jennings.
Can't stick with the diamond. Well, Max, thanks for coming on today and talking some baseball.
Of course, man, anytime.
Gloomy as it is sometimes, it's fun to talk about at least.
Maybe it'll turn around.
Hopefully so. Max, thanks again for joining us. And folks, thanks again to you for listening to the show today. Before we get you out of here, I want to let you know that Baylor, Locked On Baylor, is now on YouTube, and we thank you for making it your first listen every single day. Make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy, former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker, do a great job bringing the NFL Draft to life with insight analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Folks, come back tomorrow because this week is loaded and it's only going to get better. Happy Tuesday. We'll see you on Wednesday. This has been Locked